Be under absolutely no illusion that there would be a Doge department if there is ever a reform government. And bear in mind, look how well that went in America just recently with all those, floods, where Doge was telling people, yeah, too expensive to put up the type of warning systems that would have warned those people that, died in that flood. Just, bit too expensive. Not only that, look at the chaos that's been caused in air traffic control, all the accidents that have happened, skyrocketed in internal domestic flights in America. I would be terrified about taking an internal domestic flight in America. Not only that, the potential corruption that is happened as well, because Doge went in and got rid of like agencies and departments where you had people who were responsible for looking out for that type of stuff. I think right now in America, even though the Americans probably don't even realize it, I think they're looking or going to see probably an absolute golden age for governmental corruption, thanks to some of the stuff that Doge has done. So almost instantly, this is not really a good pattern to follow. However, it sells good. It makes good PR. After all, we're just going after the waste, fraud, and abuse. And especially when it comes to local councils, because of, well, the political disengagement, all the nonsense you see talked, again, we've covered that before, about local councils in your area. Trust me, it's the same whichever local council you go for. Councillor so-and-so's on the take. They would only do this because, money's been passed under the table, etc. Although none of this is ever found. And yes, corruption does tend to happen at local councils. Like I say, Private Eye has an entire section called Rotten Boroughs dedicated to that type of stuff. But guess what? Those people get caught by the very same system that Reform UK criticizes for being too complicated. Says a lot about that, doesn't it? So anyway, we're going to have a look at this because I think this is an interesting take on Doge. This is coming from someone who is a member of Unison, really criticizing this Doge unit, and that it's not actually going to really achieve anything other than probably a witch hunt going after, quote, the blob. And trust me, if Doge starts to fail or not come up with the type of cuts that Nigel Farage wants in Kent, then oh boy, are they going to start blaming it on the blob. Oh, the blob just hid it all from us. Anyway, before we do get on into this, please do remember to click, of course, on the like, share, and subscribe button, of course, down below as well. And of course, there are the Patreon page, there's the Buy Me Coffee link where you can, well, buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there's the YouTube membership button down below as well. So thank you very much to all those people who do hit the like and share button. And of course, don't forget to ring the bell as well. So let's crack on then into this. So Reform UK's Doge witch hunts will achieve very little. So, with budget cuts now looming after the Chancellor's now spending review, councils now face another round of very difficult choices on how to allocate spare resources. So, is it of course no surprise that many staff at Reform UK-led authorities are now feeling unjustly targeted, threatened, and even by the party's own controversial efficiency hit squads. These units, modelled after Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, are announcing following the reform elections wins in 10 councils back in May. Letters, of course, signed by Reform leader Nigel Farage, sent to authorities, state that the Doge-inspired investigators will examine whether local spending is now robust, lawful, and value-driven. And here's the thing. We have seen this and covered this. Councils do this all the time. They have their own auditors, first and foremost. They have their own auditors. They have their own internal audit team. Not only that, but they also get audited by external people as well all the time. This is a really robust system. This is how these people, as we mentioned before, in Private Eye, get often caught out by these internal or external auditors. Right? Not only that, but the system they criticize for, what is it, like Procurement. Oh, procurement's just too complex. No, procurement is there for a reason. It is complex to make sure that all the bases are covered. Reform UK wants to get procurement down to like a single sheet. Like, this is what they want to do. They want to make procurement easier. So Farage, now who's also an MP, demands access to, of course, key council documents, including commercially sensitive procurement data and, of course, whistleblower reports. Again, they believe that all this whistleblowing, etc. stuff, all covered up by councils. Again, oh, aren't councils all corrupt, etc. Again, it's not true. Separately, of course, Reform's former chairman, head of now the Doge unit, Zia Youssef, has now pledged to tackle wasteful spending. Kent County Council was the first to receive a knock from Youssef's merry band of data analysts and forensic auditors. A very now similar review is under the way in Lancashire. So, once again, we can see this stuff also popping up now in Lancashire very soon too. As, of course, the UK's largest union, Unison represents hundreds of thousands of local government workers and has very deep concerns about this reform initiative. It is highly unusual for a leadership now of a national party to demand access to such information, and local staff are now understandably feeling very uneasy. If Keir Starmer had, of course, signed a letter requesting sensitive whistleblower reports and financial records handed now from the Central Labour Party, there would, of course, be very serious questions. Again, he's right, there would be. You don't really need to ask for that type of stuff, especially when you're prime minister. You already have access to it. But if this was, sent by Keir Starmer, I'd be like, why are you doing this? You don't really need to access this, especially if you are aware of how local councils are already run. Morale across the reform-controlled council areas is now already low. Unison will, of course, provide support during these very unsettling months. The union now is currently working with branches and regions to try and get a clearer picture of what is happening now locally. And I would not be surprised if it is the unions that start blowing the whistle first on what is going on over this stuff. Then, of course, we've talked about this before. The union membership has now surged. Growing staff now anxiety is reflecting now amongst the membership. New recruits to the union have now surged by an average of 167% across all these 10 reform-led areas after the May elections, of course. Does everyone realize, oh, actually, better join the union? they're going to start doing stuff like this. Of course, using external auditors to examine council finances, of course, isn't new. Authorities have now long been accountable to taxpayers and are transparent about how they award contracts, from road repairs to care services. As we've said, they do this all the time. This is normal. But people don't think so because of all the political disconnect going on about, local councils, etc., that's been there. It's even worse than how people feel about, national government. That's why turnout for local elections was just so awful. Kent, 77% of people in Kent did not vote in the last election. That's why they ended up with a reform-controlled council. Same for all these other areas as well. But the reform's approach is, of course, very much unprecedented, centralized, intrusive, and very heavy-handed. Many workers, of course, feel the Doge teams lack an even basic understanding of local government finance. And that is very true. Very, very true indeed. It is also very unclear what the headline-chasing exercise will actually achieve. Reform says it wants to try and identify wasteful spending and recommend achievable solutions. This populist rhetoric suggests that councils are now recklessly spending public money, but that claim isn't supported by the facts. Again, isn't supported at all. Authorities have been cut to the bone because of conservative austerity. Most councils are now skint. Local authorities' core spending has now fallen since 27% since 2010. Unison research shows that the annual shortfall between what they need and what they spend has exceeded over £4 billion. 8 councils have now issued Section 114 notices since 2018, effectively declaring themselves bankrupt. Far from squandering cash, many are now selling assets to try and balance their books. And again, that can only take you so far. With council, of course, tax tax rises scrapped. The demand now for local services like social care and houses is soaring. Authorities now are increasingly reliant on Whitehall bailouts. Well, they also used to get a lot of money from EU stuff as well, but that's now gone. Something else we said, while did that happen? Start in 2018. There's the Section 114 notices start then. Really big coincidences when a lot of that stuff started happening there, right? In, of course, this context, so it is, of course, very hard to envision what, of course, waste reform will actually identify. In this context, allocating now dwindling resources wisely, of course, matters now more than ever. It requires knowledge and experience. Again, very, very true. This is why you want experienced councillors in these positions, not an 18-year-old that's happened in Warwickshire, or a 19 and a 22-year-old in charge of adult and social care services in Leicestershire. What could possibly go wrong? So, yeah, of course, since the local elections, staff have now reported widespread delays in action from now reform-led councillors. Scores of meetings have now simply been cancelled, as we've said. Just because they are not doing anything does not mean that this does not cause problems. In Kent, for example, 2/5, that's 40% of key meetings between the local elections have now been completely cancelled. This includes gatherings of governance and now even audit committees. Reform claims that these councillors, of course, need more time to train, but Unison now understands that councillors don't even realise that how completely unprepared for how much work is involved. Of course, as we said that before. And then this talks about the Warwickshire one. The leader of Warwickshire County Council, Rob Halford, resigned just 6 weeks, now leaving an 18-year-old in temporary charge. Well, he's now in full charge. Well, Howard cited health issues, something everyone can also sympathise with. He also admitted the leader's role was, of course, extremely demanding. And yet, now that 18-year-old is in charge of that extremely demanding leadership role. Elsewhere, of course, confusion reigns. In a case of one new Reform councillor in Durham, also worked for the authority, he had to step down after realising that he was barred from holding both roles. Being a councillor is, of course, a very serious responsibility. Local people and council staff rely now on elected members to attend meetings, make decisions, and support some of the most vulnerable people in society. And again, they aren't doing that when they're cancelling all these meetings constantly. And this is still going on. But, they just need time to train. Anyway, the uncertainty, of course, caused by these Doge audits cannot, of course, continue targeting dedicated council workers who are now trying to do their best during challenging financial circumstances, risk putting them out of the sector altogether, and at a time when communities now need them the most. Again, very, very true. This is why Reform also want to go after their pensions as well, or at least stop people getting onto these new pensions, because they do not believe in people basically working for the government. As far as they're concerned, if you work for the government, you're an absolute sucker. Why on earth would you go and work for, the government? You fool. You should be working in the private sector. But it's where they want to drive these people to. And of course, why they want to sort of slash, probably. It would not surprise me if Reform did try to sack a lot of people. Would not surprise me when we get these full Doge stuff. Would not surprise me if they recommend firing X number of people. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think about all this stuff going on as well. And of course, don't forget to hit the like, share, and of course, subscribe button as well. And of course, don't forget to ring the bell as well, so you're notified when new videos come out. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.